Down to Atlanta for week number 3 of the MLS season. Jason, appreciate you hopping on, giving us a couple minutes. Always like spending time with you, my friend. An Atlanta team. I remember the conversation. Oh, it must have been late September, early October, because it took that long for these teams to play last year. And you had talked about what Atlanta had done during the course of the summer transfer window, maybe step one of a part two to come in the offseason. The part two certainly came. Just putting together my spotting board and my sheet for the game this weekend. A lot of new names and a lot of money spent for this Atlanta United team. Talk to us about that a little bit.
Yeah, it's been a wild offseason where you have a new GM in Chris Henderson. You have a new manager in Ronnie Dyla, someone that you know well from his time at NYC, a new striker in Latte Lat, and a returning hero in Miguel Almiron. And I think we also have to remember that the team added essentially another designated player in Mateusz Klich and got DC United to pay for it, which is a fascinating move that I'd love to hear the backstory on at some point. So, three really important players in the starting 11 and two really important figures outside of that. It was a busy offseason, and I think it's all still, coming together. That's a lot of chemistry that you have to build with that group.
Through the first couple of weeks, I'd point to the game last week, right? And I know Charlotte expected to be much improved, but that had to have been a little bit of a disappointment leaving North Carolina being shut out.
Yeah, 100%. I think where I'm at, and everybody's talked about this team defensively and being frustrated with it. I'm more frustrated with when they've had the big moments in the attack and they've created a ton of chances and they've created a ton of shots. They've only scored one goal in the first half. And that's something that was a bit of an issue last year as well. Very different setup, different style of playing. But when you're not taking advantage of those moments of momentum where you're controlling the game, where you're dangerous, and you only have one goal to show for it because the first halves have been great for Atlanta United this season, that's not enough. You leave the door open. And when you do that against a team like Charlotte, look, it's two long balls that you don't deal with well, and they get two goals in 5 minutes, and you're not coming back from that against them. They're a very good defensive team. So when Atlanta is playing well, and I think they'll play better for longer stretches of time as they go, as this attack gels. But when it's on, you got to put the ball in the back of the net. You've got to score goals with that because this isn't a team that I think is going to win a lot of 1-0 games. That's not how they're built. They're built to go out and score a lot of goals. And we saw it with Miami last year. When that avalanche starts to happen, it's really difficult for teams to deal with. This team has that kind of firepower, but they've got to score the goals to make that happen.
You mentioned maybe some struggles defensively. That was at least the concern from the offseason into the first couple of games. The biggest change that I saw, again, putting my prep work together, Brooks Lennon, Pedro Amador, guys that were starters last year towards the end of the season, both injured. So now not only are you throwing all the chemistry of the guys up top, now you're throwing, in essence, two outside backs as brand new starters.
Yeah, we talked about it on our Atlanta Soccer Tonight show on 989 The Game last night. In training yesterday, where the media was able to watch the whole session, Amador and Lennon were both part of that. And with Amador, it's been working back from a muscle injury, so wasn't quite sure on the timeline, but he's right around that amount of time to be able to participate. With Lennon, there was a lot of unknown because it was a shoulder injury in the playoffs last year against Miami and surgery. And he had been working, but not in full activity with the team, not contact related activities. He was a full participant yesterday and looked really good. So I think this attack, and again, talking about offense, defense, and where Atlanta is, I think the attack gets better with the width that Lennon and Amador can provide. And I think in turn, that makes this a better defensive team because you're going to be in the attacking half more often. Uh, Matt Edwards is a player who I have a lot of belief in, someone who came in from the academy, went to the University of North Carolina, came back on a twos deal, earned himself a pro first team deal last season midway through. I thought he handled Wilfred Zaha really well in the first 45, and he made one mistake on a bouncing ball that he misjudged, and it ends up getting punished for it. The other side, it was Ronald Hernandez in game one. He went down with an injury. It was Luis Abram, a center back, playing on the left side. And I think you saw in the attack the limitations that you had without Lennon, who's an elite attacking right back, and without Amador, who's an elite attacking left back. If you get them back, your defense gets better because your offense is better, in my opinion, if they're back in full participants this week.
How about playing style wise? Maybe too early to judge, but what have you seen with the coaching change and Ronnie Dyla now taking over?
Yeah, it is still early, and I think it will evolve a little bit, but it's a little more vertical than we saw last season at times. And last season was kind of two seasons with Gonzalo Pineda in the first half and Rob Valentino in the second half. I think Rob especially had a more limited roster at that stage, so it was a more defensive than we've typically seen from an Atlanta United team. I think Ronnie Dyla in some ways is a throwback to Tata Martino and that verticality. This is a team that's going to want to get into the attacking half as quickly as possible, not extended build up and keeping possession inside their own half to attract the pressure. Something that worked pretty well in the home game in 2023 against the Red Bulls that Atlanta got the win. I think this is a team that will try to get into the attacking half quickly and play in that half. So how well they do that is still a little bit to be seen, but a team that's going to be more vertical than maybe you're accustomed to with Atlanta United.
The new names in, plus the re-addition of Almiron and the money spent. Give me the guy, though, Jason, who is going to fly under the radar. That's extremely important to this team having success, that maybe people are going to just be so wowed by the names and how much money was spent, they're not even going to think of this player.
Bartosz Slisz, the six. He's going to be in a double pivot a lot of the time with this team, but he's a young player that I think he showed. We've seen it in this league's history. Guys who come in from good clubs in leagues like Poland and Legia Warsaw, a very strong club, a dominant club. But when you get out of your comfort zone and you come to Major League Soccer, it's a challenge at times. And I think last season was a challenging season for Atlanta with big expectations straight out of the gate, struggles as things developed, some departures in the middle. And Slisz, being a young player who had been accustomed to maybe dominating in his domestic league, I think he struggled with some of those ups and downs. I think he struggled with what it means to play in front of the crowds that he plays in front of at Mercedes-Benz Stadium and the pressure that creates being at home and being expected to play well. He really came good as the year went on. I thought in the playoff series against Miami, not just because he had the decisive goal, I think it was a lot of what he did in the midfield to make it difficult for Miami to play. I thought Slisz was so essential in the way that Atlanta's going to play in 2025 under Ronnie Dyla. I think he's even more important because when you have those fullbacks and they get forward well and they stretch the field wide, Slisz is going to be the one that has to support the center backs, but also has to launch a lot of those attacks and make that decision. Is the ball vertically on? Play it. If it's not, move it to the side to create the vertical option. How is he going to handle all of those reading moments of the game? I'm really intrigued to see it. I think he's just so much more comfortable in 2025. So as he goes, I think the team will go in a big way.
Well, the way you described it, we could have a pretty wide open game come Saturday night down in Atlanta. Jason, appreciate you hopping on, giving us a couple minutes. Look forward to seeing you and Mike over the course of the weekend.
Yeah, get your tea ready. I think there might be a lot of yelling for all of us to do in this match.